All right, let me take you deeper into this story. Because what just happened with Shedeur Sanders isn't just about a kid sliding in the draft. This might go down as one of the most controversial and revealing moments in modern NFL history. And I've been thinking about it non-stop for over 24 hours now. I couldn't shake the feeling that what we just witnessed wasn't just unfortunate or even unfair. It was something darker, something calculated. And the more I sat with it, the more one word kept echoing in my head: collusion. I'm not throwing that word around lightly. I'm not just ranting into the void. I truly believe we just saw a $50 million robbery happen in front of the entire football world. Not a fumble, not a miscalculation, a robbery. And Shedeur Sanders was the victim. That's what I believe. That's what it looks like. And as far as I'm concerned, the NFL might have just made the biggest legal mistake it's made in decades. See, the draft is supposed to be this magical, transformative moment in a player's life. It's the moment every kid dreams about, walking across that stage, hearing your name called, hugging your family, finally being recognized for all the blood, sweat, and sacrifice. But for Shedeur Sanders, that moment became a televised humiliation, a coronation turned crucifixion. So please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Let's lay out the facts. This was a quarterback projected to go top 10. Worst case? Top of the second round. You can go pull up every major mock draft from January to April. They all had Shedeur going no later than pick 40. He had the stats, he had the poise, he had the story, and most importantly, he had the talent. This wasn't some media-hyped experiment. This was a legitimate high IQ quarterback who led the entire NCAA in completion percentage, 74.1%. That's elite no matter how you slice it. He broke records. He was at the heart of one of the most electrifying programs in college football, a program that reshaped the way we even talk about college ball. And then draft night came. And round 1 passed, and then round 2, then 3, then 4. No phone. Call. No team. No celebration. That champagne bottle at his draft party, it never even got opened. And when pick 144 finally came, the Cleveland Browns called his name, and the broadcast didn't even linger. It cut away. It was silent. The biggest story in college football suddenly became invisible. Now some people tried to rationalize it. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he bombed the interviews. Maybe teams had questions about his leadership, his attitude, his fit in certain systems. But come on. Falling to the 5th round? For a guy like this? That's not a normal drop. That's not a slide. That's a black hole. That's intentional. And when I say that, I'm not alone. Because according to reports, the Sanders family is now preparing to sue the National Football League. Not just for defamation, not just for lost earnings, but for collusion. And when I heard that, I didn't flinch. I nodded. Because that's exactly what it looks like. You can't look me in the eye and tell me that 32 teams, all with different scouting departments, all with their own quarterback issues, all independently came to the conclusion that this guy wasn't worth a shot until the 144th pick. It defies logic. We're talking about a quarterback who was universally seen as a top 3 player at his position. Guys like that don't fall 4 rounds unless something else is going on behind the scenes. And this is where it gets murky. Because the NFL has a long history of protecting its image, protecting the shield, and we've also seen how they respond to personalities that threaten that image. And if we're being honest, Shedeur and Deion Sanders represent a new kind of threat, not because they're reckless, but because they own their own narrative. They control their brand. They don't wait for the league to tell their story. They tell it themselves. That scares people. At the Combine, teams grilled Shedeur on his worst plays. One coach reportedly asked him about a rough snap, and Shedeur said, "Maybe I'm not your guy." Now, was that the perfect answer? Maybe not. But do we really think a single line in a high-stress meeting is enough to drop someone 4 rounds? Or is that just the excuse they're using to justify something they'd already decided? Teams reportedly planted mistakes in their install sessions just to see if he'd catch them. One time, he didn't. That rubbed some coaches the wrong way. But again, is that enough to erase an entire college career? To pretend he wasn't one of the most accurate and consistent quarterbacks in the country? And let's talk about the teams. There weren't many who needed quarterbacks this year. Pittsburgh, they're talking to Aaron Rodgers. Tennessee's locked in on Cale Ward. The Giants didn't even bother showing interest. The Rams and Browns both traded down, clearly saving their ammo for the 2026 class. So what was really happening here? Well, according to leaked communications being reviewed by several independent outlets, communications that the Sanders legal team obtained through private investigation, multiple NFL owners allegedly warned each other not to draft Shedeur. They talked about his media baggage, about the distractions that came with his name. They didn't want the circus. They didn't want the primetime effect. And worse, those same reports suggest there were back-channel conversations, direct messages between ownership groups, essentially agreeing that unless it was absolutely necessary, they would all pass. They'd let him fall. They'd send a message. What message exactly? That you don't get to control the narrative if you're a player? That being confident, being visible, being vocal, especially if you come from a family like the Sanders, will cost you? This isn't some paranoid theory. This is being backed by actual evidence, internal communications, insider accounts. And if those claims hold up in court, this could become the biggest collusion case since the Kaepernick saga. And let's be clear, this isn't the Kaepernick situation. Colin was blackballed for taking a stand for civil rights. Shedeur? He was embarrassed. But he wasn't erased. He still got drafted. He still has a chance to play. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the league thought they could get away with this. Because it wasn't total exile, it was humiliation. Enough to damage his brand, shake his confidence, and strip away millions in value. But not enough to spark a public uprising. Only it did spark something. And now, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, isn't just sitting back. Behind the scenes, he's reportedly furious, telling friends the league blackballed his son. And now, with legal teams moving in and media outlets starting to dig, this thing is about to explode. So please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support, and let's be real. Primetime's DNA runs through that boy. That confidence, that presence, that belief in himself, it's natural, it's raw. And when Shedeur speaks, you can feel that prime bravado echoing through every sentence. But that's exactly what rubbed some of these NFL execs the wrong way. It started way before the draft. The whispers were already there. Let's talk about the combine. Shedeur didn't throw. He didn't work out. He showed up, did some interviews, and kept it pushing. And that right there, that was strike one in the eyes of the NFL decision-makers. They want their guys to play the game, show the humility, kiss the ring. But Shedeur, he walked in there like, you already got my film, you already know who I am. And while that confidence might have been earned, it didn't sit right with people who still cling to old-school traditions. Then the interviews. Word on the street was that his sit-downs with teams were not exactly glowing. Some say he came across as too confident, too self-assured, maybe even a little dismissive. And for a league that's built on hierarchy and structure, that rubbed a whole lot of people the wrong way. You gotta remember, the NFL isn't just looking for talent. They're looking for soldiers who'll fall in line. So when Shedeur fell to the 5th round, it didn't make football sense. This is a guy who put up better numbers than the #1 overall pick in the same class. He balled out in college. He was one of the most talked about quarterbacks in the entire draft cycle. And yet, 130-plus players went before him. Nah, something else was going on. Fox analysts tried to explain it away, said he wasn't a generational talent, said he didn't have the intangibles, said he came with baggage. But that so-called baggage? That's just code for the fact that this kid didn't play their game. He didn't beg. He didn't audition. He didn't shrink himself to fit into their mold. And the Sanders legal team? They saw that too. To them, this wasn't just a fall, it was a setup. They believed the NFL didn't just pass on Shedeur. They coordinated a takedown, a message. You don't get to pick your own narrative, we do. And you want proof? Just look at that now infamous Colin Cowherd line. Nobody wants a celebrity backup quarterback. That quote right there, word is it's already being cited in early drafts of the legal complaint. Because it's not just an insult, it's ammunition. You got guys who played in the league 10, 14 years saying, we've never seen this before. Because let's be honest, you don't just stumble into a first-round caliber quarterback in the 5th round. That's not a happy accident. That's a deliberate devaluation. And if you listen to the whispers coming out of Berea, some folks are saying the Browns didn't even want to pick him, but the owner gave the green light. Or maybe the red light. One report even quoted a source saying, take him off the board. I don't want that guy. Why? Was it his talent, or was it the shadow cast by his father? And look, I'm not here to say Shedeur did everything right. He was out there in interviews saying, if you want a new culture, I'm your guy. That kind of swagger can be seen as leadership or arrogance, depending on how you feel about the messenger. And his dad, Dion? Yeah, he didn't hold back either. He went on podcasts and straight up said, that's my son. I'm going to get him where I want to get him. And again, depending on your perspective, that's either confidence or control. But none of that changes the fact that Shedeur balled out. He took Jackson State to the national stage. He brought eyes and cameras to an HBCU program that was largely ignored. Then he transferred to Colorado and turned one of the most irrelevant programs in college football into the most watched storyline in the country. And now, after all that, he's being painted as uncoachable, as entitled. Come on, that narrative doesn't make sense. And if you really peel back the layers, you realize it's not just about Shedeur. This is Deion Sanders versus the NFL establishment. Primetime has always been a disruptor. From how he recruits to how he dominates the media, he's never played by their rules. And the NFL? They're not built to handle that kind of personality. This is a league that's obsessed with control, with image, with protocol. So when Shedeur skipped the Senior Bowl, skipped the combine workouts, and acted like he was already the guy, they didn't like that. Suddenly you've got anonymous, say, scouts leaking info. He's arrogant. He won't be a backup. He doesn't have leadership qualities. And according to the Sanders legal team, those leaks weren't just careless. They were calculated, designed to poison his stock, devalue him before the draft. Send a message, play our game, or pay the price. Now let's talk dollars. A top 10 pick in 2025, that's around $35 million guaranteed over 4 years. Shedeur's deal with the Browns? Just $4.6 million with minimal guarantees. That's not just a financial drop, it's an economic gut punch. And the lawsuit? Reportedly, they're seeking over $100 million in damages. That includes lost salary, endorsements, branding deals, and long-term financial growth tied to being a franchise quarterback. On top of that, they're factoring in damage to the Prime brand, to Deion's reputation, to his ability to recruit and build. And this lawsuit? It might not stop with the NFL. Word is, they're looking at subpoenaing media outlets, scouting services, and maybe even individual general managers, emails, text messages, internal reports. If the Sanders family really has the receipts, this could explode into a scandal that makes Deflategate look like a parking ticket. Now the NFL? They're staying quiet, refusing to comment. But behind closed doors? Executives are reportedly furious. One unnamed AFC source even said, if they sue, they're done. He'll never get another snap. But guess what? Shedeur doesn't care. According to people close to him, he'd rather never play another down than stay quiet. One anonymous family source even said, they want to make an example out of Shedeur. Instead, he's going to make an example out of them. And right now, He's just staying focused, working out with the Browns, keeping his head down, not tweeting, not talking. But this story, it's just getting started. Because if what's being alleged turns out to be true, then the NFL didn't just fumble a draft pick. They fumbled a dynasty. And the Sanders family? Yeah, they're coming to get what they feel was stolen. Thanks for watching and see you next one.